Hi everyone, this is me, Shilpa again, on to our second message of third episode of Walk with Coach series.
Yep.
So I have a question, Bala. In the while running, like when we look at any of our runs, I've noticed that there's always stretching exercise that's supposed to be done before running. So why is it needed? What is stretching actually?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. I think, you're right. Before even we begin to start thinking about running, I think let us first start with understanding what is stretching first, right? So let's keep it simple. In English meaning of stretching is what? It's just pulling it apart. That's really what stretching is. If you go to a dictionary and maybe open up the word stretching, that's what it is. Pulling it apart is stretching. So when we do stretching, that's really what we are trying to do. We are pulling the muscles apart. We are pulling these muscles apart. That's really what it is. Now, why is it that people want to do stretching? So that is stretching. Now, why is it that we need to do stretching? Now, if you think about muscles, right, putting it very easily, now muscles are made of these strands, small strands, collagen strands. And these are think about it as different strands, all if it is parallel to each other, it's fantastic scenarios. And many strands like this are now bundled up on a sort of a thin plastic sheet, which is, fascia it's called. So you can imagine different bundles of logs connected to each other, like 10 bundles. Some plastic sheet is connected on top of each other. Like that, there are 10 bundles. And then there is one more plastic sheet is connected across these 10 bundles. Think of this as the simplest explanation of how a muscle looks like, right? Now, when you do stretching, really what is happening is all these plastic coverings gets torn up a little bit.
Okay.
When it gets torn up, the muscle fibers inside are a little bit more flexible to move around for some time. Or, if all these muscle fibers are kept parallel to each other, it is better. If it is all crooked or knotted, then when you break open that plastic cover, then it can sort of realign itself. And as a result, the muscle gets a little bit more supple. That could be the easiest explanation I can give you what happens at a cellular level in muscles.
Oh, now, so when they say you have to break the knots in the muscles, that's what we are trying to do by giving it a massage or something.
So there is a little bit more on this, but you're right, somewhere on that direction, right? So when you do stretching, this is what is happening. You're sort of breaking the various, coverings that are bundling the muscles together.
Correct.
So, but when you break, it's really an inflammation sort of an event. It's not as if just because you're breaking it, you're suddenly becoming easier it's actually an inflammation event. These sort of bundling plastic covers are there for a reason. So when you break it, it is actually an injury that you're causing to the muscle group. Right?
Correct.
So that's why that asks the question, then why are we breaking these things and creating an inflammation event before you start a run? It's not a great thing, right? Why do you create an inflammation exercise before you start a run? So that means there is some misconception in stretching before a run, right? 1 second, I'm just getting this call. So that's the first part I wanted to say a little bit about what is happening on this kind of stretching. There is an inflammation event that causes. It's almost like somebody is about to do a painting, and we are saying let's just break his hands or fingers, and then let's go and do the painting. He can't. That is what it is. So if you keep creating these inflammation events, then you will have
You'll
problems.
never go to the next step.
Yeah, you will have problems in running because your body is a little bit injured.
Already injured, correct.
Right. So that is static stretching. So that's why I wanted to just first stop here. Like, what is stretching? What is happening when you are doing stretching? Stretching is a breakage of these sort of fascias, which is the covering of the muscles, and trying to extend the length of these muscle fibers. That's how I would explain stretching.
That's a great explanation, Coach. But I know there are a lot of myths about stretching. What are they like? I know it's required, but that is one of the steps. The stretching is something that we tend to overlook.
Correct. So
correct?
Stretching myths, huge stretching myths in running community. First one is this notion about when you do stretching, your muscle becomes warm and ready for action. As if when you do stretching, you are like heating up the muscles. There's some people think it's all very cold, and let's make it up warm and ready. That's one myth out there. The second myth out there is that stretching sort of expands the length of the muscles. Because of the expansion of the length of the muscles, it can contract and expand better, and thereby muscles can work better. You know, if you go and read a lot of theory on this, expansion of muscle, if you take a muscle and if you want to expand in length, you need to stretch 3 to 4 minutes every day for 12 weeks for it to expand. So it's not as if you just before the run you do a little bit of stretching and you think your muscle has expanded. No way, that's not happening. There is another sort of myth out there that stretching removes toxins from the muscles. As if there is, first of all, I don't know what is toxin, but you know, there are some toxins, it looks like, and then some people think that by stretching you're squeezing out the toxins out of the muscle. You know, all of these are like beautiful myths that many runners have. None of this is true. Let's just be very clear about it. Then you might wonder, then why are we even doing stretching, right? No, that's a good question. That's a very good question. So that's why I want to introduce, there are 2 types of stretching here, guys. Okay. The first stretch is a static stretch, where you are standing and just pulling your, legs up apart or hands apart or kind of stretching. The other one is called dynamic stretch. This is what I'm asking all of you to do, wherein you are simulating running movement and you're just moving sort of various muscles, just moving. As part of the movement there are some mimicking a run, and as part of the run there are some muscular stretches happen. Right? So that is a dynamic stretch, and I always ask you to start off with a dynamic stretch and never with a static stretch. The idea behind stretching, though, even folks who do static stretch before running, is when you do static stretch, you are actually a little bit increasing your heart rate.
Okay.
When the heart rate increases, more blood sort of circulates in your body.
Correct.
And as a result, your body just gets primed up. It's almost like switching on the car and just warming up the engine before you start driving. That's really that's all the static stretch is doing, pretty much. But what dynamic stretch is doing is it is activating the nerve muscle connection, which is what is needed in running. When you are running, you want all your muscles to get activated. And who is activating these muscles? The brain.
Correct.
So the brain needs to send the signals to the various portions of your body, muscles, to get activated. And when you do dynamic stretching, you're really training your brain to start sending those signals to various parts of your body to start the process of running. The activation of neuromuscular connection is what is dynamic stretching. And that's why I'm asking you to do dynamic stretching. It's nothing to do with extending your length of your muscles or removing toxins and that type of stuff. It is entirely about neuromuscular activation. When you do that and then you start the run, your sort of brain is better able to control the various muscles that needs to be in place, and as a result you run better. The static stretching happens after you finish the run. So if you look at the post-run stretch, the idea of static stretching is all the knots that has been created, little bit by stretching it, there might be some early knots that can get released a little bit. That's all we are trying to do. And a little bit of extension of these tissues will also help. If there are some lactic acid that has been formed on the muscles, that can just get squeezed out of those muscles. Those 2 things happen in static stretching after a run and not before a run. Hope that explains.
So it's very important that you do a dynamic stretching before the run.
Correct.
And a static stretching after the run.
Which is what the instructions are for you.
Great, great theory and a great explanation, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next message.
Absolutely. Thank you.